All right, folks, we are gonna get started here. So we are gonna talk about scholarships. I sent out my reminder email was, hopefully it stimulated some people to join because I said, do you want more money? We're going to talk about it today. So I know this is actually a top question that everybody had, which was around how do I find scholarships? How do I find scholarships? How do I get different scholarships? How do I know if they're worth it? How do I make it easier to apply to scholarships? Because it can feel like a full-time job. Before we jump into that, I'm just going to ask for anybody to share a personal win. So I will call on you. If you want to pass, you're very welcome to pass. And I'm going to share screen and feel free to share a win, and also share your name and your pronouns and your location. I'm gonna have to share a win next time. I'm gonna have to update my music on this downloaded to my computer. Okay, who would like to go first? Who's got a win? Akela, do you want to share a win?
Sure. And then hopefully that will prompt you all thinking so that you can talk to us, because otherwise it will be a very lonely time and that would be tragic. A personal win for me, I would say I've started doing Pilates again. I'd stopped for a while, but now I'm back at it and
Well done.
living my best life. My name is I use she, her pronouns. I'm in DC. Those are things I should have started with.
Thank you. All right, awesome. All right, I'm Melanie, and she, her pronouns. I am in Canada. I was recently accepted to a very cool program through Boehringer Ingelheim through another charity that I work with, and I'm really excited about it. It's called a Globalizer program, and year-long program. I'm really, really pumped about it. It's about systems change, which I'm really excited to learn more about. So that was a personal win. I got nominated, and I am part of it, which is very cool. Does anybody else have a win that they'd like to share?
In the chat, Antoinette said that they go next.
Yes, please.
Hi, I am Antoinette, pronouns she, her, hers, currently located in North Carolina. And I guess a personal win for me was I finally found an apartment over at my vet school. So that was a lot. So I'm like very happy about it. Now that I
Yes,
finally found
good.
it.
I hope it's a sweet apartment. Amazing. Great. Anybody else want to share?
I guess I can.
Okay, go for it.
Hello, my name is Dejanae Jackson. My pronouns are she and her. And a personal win for me would be scoring an internship at Cornell University for the what is it called? It's Cast for the Future.
Cash for the future?
Cast for the Future, like
Oh,
CAST. Yeah.
Oh, I was like, cash for the future. Tell me more. That's great. That sounds amazing. Good for you. And what is cast for the future?
It's basically working on dairy cows, and we're like doing research on them. It's a research internship. So it's like we're working somewhat on technology, like with them wearing e-collars and trying to track their behavior through like the cloud. And then we're also working physical and hands-on, like going to the farm, checking if they're pregnant, like doing ultrasounds and what was it? There was something else. Ultrasounds and I'm trying to think. Oh, taking blood and stuff like that to go to the lab.
Oh, that's so great. You're gonna have oh, great. You'll just love taking blood from a cow vein because it's so hard. It's great. Fantastic. Amazing. Oh, and Antoinette asked, are you doing palpations? Do you get to do rectal palpations for pregnancy and stuff?
I believe so. What was the question?
Do you get to do palpations?
Oh, no.
Akela is not a veterinarian, so Akela, you'll be like, why would anybody be excited about rectal palpations? Big moment in vet school when you get to palpate. Almost everybody, I don't know if you guys have this, but if you're in vet school, there's usually a moment where you get like everybody from like the dawn of time has a photo of themselves the first time that they get to rectal cow. Not exciting, but exciting. All right. I think I heard Donovan's voice.
Hi, I'm Donovan. I'm currently in Maryland.
Hmm.
I guess the win for me this week is I got to do an IP injection on a mouse.
Ooh, sweet. Nice. And did it go okay?
Yes, very much. It's very different from doing it on large animals.
Yeah, a little smaller. Yep. Good deal. Excellent. Well done. Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else want to share?
I would like to share, before I get started, I would like to say I apologize. My note taker app was taking notes, so I had to turn that off, so I do apologize.
Okay.
So my name is Alicia Armstead, and I would say one professional win would be, um, I think back in towards the end of May, I got a chance to do a speech, do a testimonial, for one of my organizations that's affiliated with the Atlanta Tuskegee Alumni Club. So that was really good. It was my first time doing public speaking. So now that kind of just gave me like a new perspective on maybe I should go into like public speaking and probably do that more often. So yes. Am I missing anything else by chance?
That was amazing. Fantastic.
Okay, thank you.
Well done. That's just great. How did it feel to do? Did you enjoy doing the speaking?
I was nervous at first, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm about to speak in front of like a whole bunch of people." It was my first time. But luckily, like all of my stage fright helped me not to really like mess up. So it was like very I guess you would say like nerve-wracking, like going into it. But once I actually did it, it made me feel amazing. So yes.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. That's so great. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing.
Mhm.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share? Okay. All right. If you feel more comfortable putting in the chat, that's totally fine. All right. Okay, super. Oh, can I share one more? Because I took my dog to the vet and he was a real weenie. He was having his heartworm test, so he had to have blood. And there was a technician student and she was really struggling with his vein. And I was so proud because I don't really practice clinically anymore, but I stepped in and I helped her and I took blood and I got the vein. I was very proud of myself. Okay, so tonight we are here for Career Jumpstart. I always start this way that we're here for you. These are topics that you're meant to identify. This is, where Akela and I are not here for the good of our health. We're here to help you guys. And we would, if something does not hit the right notes, or you would like to see a different topic or have a different way of doing things, then please let us know, because we can only improve if we know from you, if we hear from you. So we are here. This session is for you. And it really is meant to demystify some things and help you grow alongside of other students. So, and just a reminder that you are the expert in your own experience and your knowledge. So unlike spaying a dog or something that's very, very cut and dry, like there's only one way to get to the right answer, there are lots of ways in which you can take this information, use it, adapt it, or say, no, thank you, that is not for me. So you're very welcome to use what you want. So remember that you can take a piece of paper and do and use that idea to put different headers and say there's really good ideas that yes I can use right away without any modification, stuff that I can modify, stuff that I can say yeah actually I already knew that, so that's awesome, which is kind of a nice way to check the box and be like yeah I actually do know some things. Or you can say no, that's not for me, that's never going to work for me. Okay, and welcome Kat. All right, so our upcoming session is July 29th. We have, I recognize this may not be for those of you who got into vet school, but for those who are prepping, we have an expert coming from the American Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges who's going to give us a talk about preparing your vet school application. So last time we did some tailoring your resume and understanding your CVs. Would love to know in the chat if anybody took action on any of those things, or if you had time between exams and summer starting and stuff. But if you had anything that you took action on, I'd love to know, or any questions that you might still have. So, big questions. How to apply for scholarships? How do I find them? How do I know if it's worth it? So, we're going to talk about all of these things tonight. Akela is going to do the portion of the evening where we're talking about where we're going through some exercises, and you're going to go into breakout rooms because I have to go to another session that I have to facilitate. But I'm going to show you the methodology that I use to apply for grants, that I use to apply for scholarships, and I also use it sometimes for jobs as well. But we're going to apply specifically to scholarships, but just know that this is transferable and that it is, it's usually a really good way to increase your efficiency with applications. So, quick question for you, maybe because we're a small group, maybe what I will do is ask you if you can put it in the chat, how are you finding scholarships right now? And then what has been challenging or surprising about scholarships so far? Or feel free to unmute yourself as well.
I would like to go first. So as far as like for finding scholarships, I would definitely say like looking online or like at least like searching up things that are tailored to like what I want to do. Like so VetMed or like my different minority scholarships. I feel like it kind of helps find more scholarships. And then it will take you websites that offer a lot of scholarships, and then you can find more scholarships. So I would say that's I'm kind of looking for scholarships. Now, as far as for like anything that's like challenging or surprising, um, I haven't really experienced anything at the moment. I'm just kind of looking. I'm not really actively applying. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And then I see a bunch of stuff in the chat here. So, and Antoinette, I wonder if I can ask you what UNCF and TMCF stand for.
So UNCF stands for United Negro College Fund, and TMCF, which is actually where I got the DVMC scholarship, is Thurgood Marshall College Fund.
Okay. Third Marshall, yep. Is anyone a member of Manners?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, they probably have a bunch as well. Okay, great. And finding them for grad school, so for vet school, Antoinette has been hard. Is that what you're noticing?
Yes, a lot of like, even when it comes to financial aid, even the grants are more dedicated to undergraduate students versus like graduate students or anyone who wants to pursue any like doctoral degrees. So it's been pretty hard.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully, we do have a big list so that we're going to show you, and we're going to talk to you about a method to try to figure some of those things out. So, anybody else have any things that they want to share around finding scholarships or find challenging or surprising? Okay. Okie doke. So I call this like a rapid evaluation and application system so that you are not working so hard. Oh, and I'm just checking the comments here too. So, and Anisha, thanks for, I forgot to call upon you directly. So, and if you want to share anything positive, you're certainly welcome to put it into the chat as well. And great to hear that you're going through your vet school in SABMA. So we're gonna focus on some of those today. But basically, what I want you to be able to do is nobody has time to apply for scholarships. You guys have other stuff to do, but it is something that if you want, like there is free money out there. It's just a matter of finding the ones that make a lot of sense. When I was in high school, I actually ended up, myself and another classmate, we applied to a number of scholarships. Her method was to apply for really big scholarships, and in an area that because she was going into engineering, and so there were lots of really big scholarships. I ended up, because there were the animal biology that I was going into, really there weren't a lot of scholarships for that. So I ended up applying to a bunch of little scholarships, and ended up, like, both of us ended up paying for our first year of school completely and our second year of school, but completely different ways of going about things. So so she had a lot more reporting time, and I had a lot more like legwork up front. So a big steps that I like to recommend for people if you're trying to work smarter, not harder, is to create a folder on your computer, or have a folder on whatever OneDrive or wherever you store your files, and make sure that you have some core stuff. So we talked about our resume. So last session we did a bunch of work on our resumes, and it's important to have an up-to-date resume because you forget. I can 100% guarantee you forget all the amazing things that you've done. even, you know, if you came into this meeting and you were like, I don't have a win for this, geez, I definitely don't have a win, I don't think I've done anything good this week, that this is why it's important to have your stuff up to date, or at least remember to update it once in a while, like every 6 months, because you forget all those things. One good thing about being in academia is that they require you to do, as a professor, they require you to update your resume every single year and like include every single thing that you've ever done. That is, it's a painful process, but it is also a very good process, because I've never in my life since I left academia had such an up-to-date resume. If you can have a craft, like a cover letter, just a generic cover letter that you might use for jobs, but you might also be able to use for a scholarship to say that you're applying, then you don't have to do it again. Because like a cover letter, you've changed the name of the scholarship, you changed why, you know, why you think you'd be good or whatever. But just having a draft covering letter and a little email that says, hey, I'm, you know, please accept my application for applying. That'll help save you time, because it's a template. Do the work once and don't do it again. And if you have anything that are common, like things like they might require FAFSA documentation, they might require your transcript, they might require, you know, whatever documentation of enrollment, those kinds of things, or sometimes even proof of citizenship or whatever it might be, to put it into, and proof of address, put those into a file folder, because it's easier. You don't have to be hunting through it again. So again, this is something that I wasn't always good at, but I've got to be better at, because it really does save you a ton of time, instead of having to hunt and peck all over the place and try and be like, oh, I wonder if that was in my old email, or if that's in my Gmail, or if that's in whatever email it is, or call your mom and ask for proof of address, or all the things. If you can have it put into one place, you don't have to worry about it again. We're going to talk about creating a baseline essay and some of your examples. We worked on some of these for job interviews last time, and they also can do double duty for your essays, which is really fun and super easy. And your elevator pitch that we talked about previously when we were talking about LinkedIn and how to represent yourself, that is also really helpful, because it helps to form the basis of making essays a lot easier, and how to answer some of the things in a scholarship application. And reference lists as well. So people who you can call upon to be a reference, that it's not that on their email, so that then you can just chat them off an email. Hey, Dr. Sheard, I wonder if you could just be a reference for me for this one thing. Or, you know, just have or if you could say, I'm applying to a bunch of scholarships, would you be my reference if I needed one? Perfect for this whole year. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to assume yes. So we're going to talk about where to find these scholarships. We have a DVMC database, and we're actually going to be using that tonight for some of the activities that you're going to be doing. And we're going to call upon you to add to it as well, because they're going to show you like we're going to talk about rapid Googling with keywords and things like that, so that you can make sure that you're trying to search in as broad a way and skimming quickly. And then you can also follow organizations on LinkedIn. So because I work in the charitable sector, I often follow, I search keywords around like whatever sector I'm working with, and follow those organizations that might be granting agencies. So you can do the same with scholarships as well. So the UNCF, TMCF, Manners, they would be great ones to follow on LinkedIn or on other social media platforms, because they may not be great. They may be good at social media, but they may only have like 1 or 2 posts. So you could always put a little alert on that, you know, whenever Manners posts or whenever this group posts, there probably will be something that you may want to just double check it, or have it go to the top of your feed. We're going to show you our DVMC database, and so you can use it you can download it and use it as a starting point for yourself. This is just the way that we do things. You might wish to have different criteria or different things that you might want to keep on hand, but having a running list is really helpful. And then what I also know is that the deadlines often approach and go by, and you think, oh shoot, I could have applied for that, but actually it's gone, or I didn't see this until it was too late, or oh shoot, I forgot entirely to apply for that scholarship that I would have been perfect for, or I've run out of time because it's exams. So you can set a calendar alert in your like school calendar online. Are you guys using, I don't know if you're using calendar alerts on your school calendar stuff or not, like on Microsoft, or like on your Microsoft 365 or Google Calendar or other things, or on your phone. It's going to be really helpful reminders. All right. Other things to note are that what we try to do is have transformable transformable essays or transformable applications. So if I'm going to go to the trouble of applying for something, I want to do that work one time. And so I want to save that application in a Word document. And then next time then I can just reuse a whole bunch of it, or recycle it, because a lot of your accomplishments will be the same. Your grades from your first year of university or your first 4 years they're going to be the same. That's not like they're changing statistics. As you're adding to them, yes, but if you have an accomplishment or an award, it's going to stay the same. And if you've written an essay, like your DVMC essay that might have got you an educational grant or a scholarship, save those because they're winning essays. So those are even better. So then you can recycle them. There's no rules unless there's read the fine print, but most of the time there's no rule about recycling your essays. You can use them in different ways. You can use them, and they're your stories. Usually they're stories about you and they're your experience. So even a minor modification is totally fine. And there usually isn't a problem with almost directly recycling things. So again, do the work once, and don't have to do it again, and do a lighter amount of work the next time. Akela, I know that you've been somebody who has evaluated scholarship applications in other roles. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your experience doing that and how that's done.
Yeah, so generally, when I have taken part in those processes, or led others through engaging in the processes, we have a standard set of criteria that we are evaluating applicants against. We are often training those folks who are going to be evaluating, in order to make sure that they are clear about how applications should be evaluated. We often will have like a model, so that we have a baseline for what particular scores look like. And so it helps to make sure that everyone is on the same page as it relates to what we are looking for, and what success looks like. And so we have those conversations in advance. We have the point of reference that can be used to sort of benchmark scores against. And then we usually have multiple people score the same applications because it helps to level set and make sure that generally there aren't profound variations on how a particular application is assessed, in which case it is, then we would often bring in another reviewer. Ideally, we'd have 3 sets of eyes on a given application. It also very much depended on the quantity of applications received. But yeah, so then we would set a timeline. We would have people go in and do the evaluations, and then we would pretty much plug it in to a spreadsheet, and then it would sort accordingly based on the numbers. And so it was pretty, we would strip it of any identifying information. And so the process felt a bit impersonal. And the purpose for doing that was to try to mitigate as much bias as possible. And so we were just looking at, here are the criteria, here's how we have defined those criteria, and in accordance, here's how we have scored this particular application, and then let the system rank the applications accordingly. And so that is how we have done it. I have been in organizations where it was not that rigid, and you never really know what you're going to get. Sometimes you have a person who is reading everything. Sometimes it is anonymized or it is not. It really just depends on the organization.
Yeah, I would say that's true too. Yeah. And sometimes you're nominated by someone in your school. And sometimes it's the like it depends. Sometimes it's literally a family of someone who's passed away, or like someone who just really wants to contribute to a particular cause. A colleague of mine was just telling me that they graduated many years ago and their class has endowed 3 scholarships at a university. And they, and I actually asked him because this session was coming up, and I was like, what do you guys like? They're not involved in the selection process, but what they look for at the university when they were talking about it, they do have a standardized grading process, but mostly what they're looking for as the person who's selecting is really that this is going to be somebody that they can go back to that class and say, we're the funder, and say, we picked somebody really wonderful. So they might show that they might show your essay to them or something like that. But at any rate, there are lots of different ways, but remember that it's partly a mix between like, a grading rubric like you would have in school, like in class, and you want to try and get as many points as you can. So if the grading rubric is provided to you and they share with you what the criteria might be, and sometimes that's candidates will be graded against whatever, and it might be more subtle as far as keywords, but try and pick those out because they'll usually tell you in the application if it's more than a one-liner, what they're kind of looking for with keywords. So that's a similar process to looking for a job, where you might be looking for keywords in the job ad or how people might be judged against their performance. Same thing with the scholarships. You're going to be looking for those keywords and to use those in your application or to demonstrate those. When I looked across a lot of the scholarships that we had on our list and many of the scholarships that I know for undergrads, the biggest common evaluation criteria are things like commitment to the field, experience with animals, your aspirations. So that doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to mean that you are saying this and you're committing it's not like you're committing to become a nun or like becoming a particular veterinarian. It's just that you have some aspirations and ideas so that when someone reads this essay, they're like, this sounds like a really upstanding person. This sounds like a person who, wow, they really, they've thought through some things, and wow, they're very accomplished, or they've really shown a lot of effort. And that's really the most important, that I think is the most important part with a lot of it. And demonstration of financial aid is another one, but that's usually just a paperwork scenario. When I think about making things easier to write next time, again, this is kind of like applying for jobs and doing job interviews, where you might say you really want to give a specific example that uses some powerful action words. So things like, I designed and led a training session for students with hands-on practice, instead of we did a training session. So you want to try and take credit for what you can take credit for meaningfully, and use a powerful action word in the middle. And you want to start with some context. So things like, you want to set the stage. Every good story, as you remember, has a beginning where you set the context, where you say what happened, and then it comes to a meaningful conclusion. So the beginning is kind of setting the stage in the context. Like, I noticed that the farm students were always forgetting about principles of animal welfare and the policies because they hadn't been trained, versus maybe saying at the farm, no one got training. And then going into what did you specifically do? And then giving the outcomes. And sometimes those are small things. It doesn't have to be like I saved the world from monkeypox. It can be things like as a result, we did XYZ or something, just so that it is rounded out if you can. Any questions about that? Questions about your good examples? We're going to practice these later as well. Okay, so one thing I did want to talk about, and Kayla, maybe we can have a little bit of a chat about this together, because I know you have some really good thoughts on this about how to use ChatGPT and whether to use ChatGPT in scholarships.
Yeah. So the thing about ChatGPT is that it is a wonderful tool. It is also a very tricky and potentially dangerous tool. Both of those things are true. And I think that Melanie and I are generally in alignment about their needing to be recognition about the benefits and drawbacks of a tool like this, and that the ideal approach is not just don't use it because it is available for use, and therefore we should probably have conversations about that. First thing I will say is that there are detection tools that make it clear for folks whether or not ChatGPT is being used. There is never a world in which it should be used to entirely write a scholarship essay, as an example. I am certain that you all know those things. I am just saying it nonetheless. To that end, there are certainly ways in which it can be useful, especially when we talk about things like those powerful action words that describe your experiences. When you, if you are thinking about something that you did, you can type that into ChatGPT in order to get a sense of the type of language that might more readily describe what you have done. And if you are like, well, I don't really know how to describe it in detail, sometimes asking it things like, what would be the inputs in order to achieve this output? Like, if I did this thing, what are all of the things that had to happen or be considered in order to achieve this particular thing? Can sometimes be helpful to ask it, because then it helps you to get a sense of the type of language that you could be using. Again, I will emphasize, using it for concrete examples, not like narrative crafting, is something that is important. And even when that happens, the next step should not be copy from ChatGPT and put into document. It should be used as point of reference to inform what I am crafting. There are a lot of other sort of one-off ways to use ChatGPT. I just, again, would caution against using it entirely to craft narratives or even sections of particular narratives or application questions.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like even with our DVMC educational grant stuff, we run it through a checker, and immediately if it's more than a certain percentage where ChatGPT has been used, then you're disqualified. So what a shame to have like spent time doing an essay, even if it was like all the other work that you have to do to get, because there's so much work that goes into it, not just the essay, right? Like it's finding the thing, making sure you get everything in on time, gathering all the documentation for all these scholarships. What a shame to have that, to just be disqualified. And in some instances, I think it can't, like if somebody really notices or takes umbrage with it, I don't think it's something that we particularly we certainly don't do. But I know if in a smaller pool, they may think, like, or at a smaller school, they may think less. They might be like, oh, this person really they didn't put in the effort. So I think that might be just something to bear in mind as well. So we're going to do I'm going to have to leave, but I'm going to hand it over to Akela, and I'm going to put in the chat, I've put in our big old spreadsheet of scholarships, and Akela is going to lead you through like the exercises that we have designed for you. So I hope that you have a wonderful night, and thanks. And I'm curious to know how it goes. Have a good time, guys.
Right,
Oh,
Melanie,
I'm just going to make you host.
okay, great.
I'll just think I'm doing that.
All right. Okay, so as Melanie said, there is a database available of already collected scholarships, and we are going to spend some time together finding a few more. So let me share my screen. And I actually have a version of this that is specifically for you all. So this is the same document, but it's one that you all can type into. So if you could click that second link that I shared, and let's see. Okay, it should read shareable copy on the top now. So we should all be in this document. Is everyone here? Great. Okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to go into groups, and in those groups, let me share what we are going to do. Let's see. Zoom is not being my friend. 1 second. There we go. All right. Maybe. Okay. Let's get to where we're going. Maybe. As I'm working on getting Zoom to work, please feel free to spend your time perusing through that list as we prepare to talk about it together. Okay, here we go. It took a while, but we got here. We are going to be in 2 groups. We are going to have a vet group and a pre-vet group. What you are going to do if you are in the vet group is to search for scholarships for vet students at vet schools and add them to the spreadsheet. These can be scholarships that are helpful for you or for others. The reason that we're doing this is because we are looking to build on our collective knowledge. We feel like we have a fair number of options here already, but that certainly does not mean that you all will not find more. We're not going to do this for long. We just want to see if there's anything that collectively we can add, because ultimately we believe that we are stronger and better when we are doing these things together. If you are pre-vet, then you're going to search for scholarships under pre-vet, animal welfare, animal health, farming, underrepresented in veterinary medicine. You can do BIPOC, STEM, science, biology, and add them to the spreadsheet. Again, these can be helpful for you or for others. You all should have editing access to the spreadsheet. Again, make sure that you are in the spreadsheet that says shareable at the top. And we are going to go into these respective groups, spend time adding for about 5 to 8 minutes, and then we'll come back and we are going to go through these together, and you all are going to start to make a priority list of those that you would like to begin applying for or that feel immediately relevant to you. Do we have, can folks actually drop into the chat whether or not you are vet or pre-vet so that I can make these rooms? You can just type vet or pre-vet into the chat. All right. See ya, Nicia. Okay, so it looks like we have 3 pre-vets and a vet. Is that everyone? And cat, pre-vet or vet? Vet. Okay, great. So we have 2 vets and we have 3 pre-vets. Let's get you all into breakout rooms. And again, what you are doing is you are working to find a few additional options, and you can add them to the tab. There is a tab that is specifically dedicated to this. You can add them to that tab. If you don't find any that are not already here, that is totally fine. We're not going to take a long time on this, and then we'll go from there. Any questions before we get going? All right. I will put a timer onto these rooms so that you all can see how much time we have left. I am assigning you now. When you get into your rooms, feel free to introduce yourselves and we will be back in, let's do 8 minutes. If you need to take a picture of the screen, feel free so that you know what you're doing in the rooms. And I am going to open them now. Any questions? All right, here we go. Recording. Okay, great. So those are 2 additions. Thank you, Alicia. Anyone, I know Donovan is going to add 1 more. Anyone else find any scholarships that feel relevant for the good of the group before we start getting into tackling which ones might feel relevant for y'all to apply to? All right. Well, thank you all for finding those and adding those in. With those added in, we have a pretty comprehensive list here. Some with application dates that are rapidly approaching. And some with deadlines that have already passed, but particularly for those that have deadlines that are approaching, we have a tracker that we are proposing you all use in order to organize yourself around scholarships. Some of this is just about the time that it takes to do this. And we talk about techniques that will save you all on time. It relates to getting all of your materials in a singular location, having standard responses to questions ready to go. All of those will help to streamline the amount of time that it takes you to apply. Some of it, the other piece, can be just knowing where they are to begin with. And so we are hopeful that our time together today starts to mitigate both of those things in order to get you all applying to as many scholarships as possible. And so this is something that I will share you all on a link to. And we are going to take some time for you to determine how you might prioritize applying to these scholarships. So there's a couple of categories that we have for consideration here. This category just says that to put in the scholarship name. And then these are the categories that we are proposing you consider when you are determining which you should prioritize as it relates to applications. Time is limited for you all, and if you are like, I do not have time, even with the streamlining methods that we have talked about, that you do not have time to apply to all of the scholarships in the world, something like this is going to help you determine where your priorities should be. The categories here are as follows. Yes, I can share the link to the scholarship list. 1 second. And then we can keep going on this. Let's see. All right. It is in the chat. Okay. So the first category that you should be considering when you are determining which scholarships to apply to is money, benefit, prestige. We have lumped all of these together because it may depend based on your particular circumstances, which of these is most relevant to your context. But here you are considering how much money, benefit to you, or prestige does the scholarship offer. Perhaps it does not offer a significant amount of money, but there's a level of prestige attached to securing that scholarship that might make you more attracted to scholarships opportunities in the future. And so that could be something to consider for you. And so these are pooled together in this way for you to consider. The scale here is if it's low, it's a 1. If it's high, it's a 3. And then moderate is in the middle. Popularity. This one can be sometimes tricky to assess, but we're looking to determine how well known the opportunity is. Obviously, more candidates in the pool means less likelihood that you could be selected for the opportunity. And that is something to consider when you are determining where to spend your time, particularly if you don't have a lot of it. And so, this category just generally refers to how well known the opportunity is. If it is a scholarship from a larger organization, those do tend to have greater visibility. So someone mentioned UNCF, that tends to be a well-known sort of scholarship opportunity entity. And so those probably have more visibility. And those that are like heavily advertised, so if you're seeing them a lot on social media, then they are likely to be more popular. Those that are very specialized scholarships tend to have less popularity. Application difficulty, this is just you getting a general assessment of how much time it's going to take you to complete the application, how many components there are in the application, and that is going to help to determine whether or not it helps to have a bearing on the score as it relates to all of the pieces that you should be considering when you are determining what feels relevant for your time. In terms of reporting requirements, so this is really getting you to think about how extensive the reporting requirements are for the scholarship opportunity. Is this something that's going to require you to routinely engage with the granting entity in order to keep them apprised of how you are doing in school, various opportunities or events that they may want you to attend? Does it require you to have a particular GPA or participate in particular activities? These are all things that generally would be good to consider because ultimately that the more restrictions or reporting requirements that are attached to an opportunity, there are implications for your time and responsibilities therein. And then lastly, we are proposing that you consider personal connection. And so to what extent does the scholarship opportunity connect to you personally? That could be the granting agency and the causes that it is associated with. It could be the unique nature of the scholarship itself. And so those are also things to consider. No personal connection would be a 1. 3 would be a high personal connection. And so these are all of the factors that we propose you consider. Type them in here. And then again, if you have all of the time in the world, then feel free to apply to all of the things. If you are like, I got to be intentional about how I spend my time, something like this can be incredibly helpful. So what I am proposing, we take the next 10 to 15 minutes to do is to review the scholarships that are on the tracker. Again, some of this is just about getting organized. We talked about getting all of your materials organized. We've talked about putting the deadlines on a calendar. Now you have a database in front of you, and the next step is going to be wading through that and saying, okay, where can I start to get strategic as it relates to applying? So 15 minutes is not going to probably get you all of the way there, but it is a start in the right direction. And some of this is just about carving out the time and space to wrap your mind around it. I'm going to share this link. You all should make a copy of this for yourself. And I'm going to make this so that you can't edit the document directly, but you should be able to make a copy of it for your own personal use. That link is in the chat. We're going to take the next, let's do 10 minutes and see where we get. For you to fill this out for yourself, let's target at least 3 scholarships that you plug in here to determine where your focus should be. And then we will come back together and chat about it. Do you all want to do this independently, or do you want to go back into groups?
I'm fine with either or.
Okay. Other thoughts? Independently or in groups? Okay. All right, let's do this independently. We'll take 10 minutes. We'll come back together at 10 past the hour and check in on where we are and any questions that are arising. Again, our target is at least 3 on the scholarship tracker that you have made a copy of. See you back in 10 minutes. Hey y'all, how's it going? Have you created your matrix and determined where you might like to begin on your scholarship journey this go around? Any thoughts?
It's going well.
What does that mean when you say it's going well?
Just it's been easier just having the time to like take time and actually look for scholarships.
Yeah, it's a lot. There are a fair number of barriers, potential barriers to applying for scholarships, and like just even identifying them can be a major hurdle, which is why we're hopeful that putting some of these in front of you and helping you all organize yourselves in this way will prove useful. But again, this is really only the start. Any roadblocks coming up for you or any questions coming up?
Do you have any tips as far as identifying like how to discern like real and fake ones?
Could you repeat that question?
Do you have any tips as far as like how to identify or discern like real scholarships from fake ones?
That's a good question. Do you have, so one, the granting organization is very much an important place to look at. Any that you see on here are ones that we know for sure are real scholarships or valid opportunities. The other thing is that I would look at the history of the particular award. And so if you can't find anyone that has received the award before, I might raise a red flag there if you don't see a history of awardees. To that end, it could be a newly established effort. And if that is the case, I would really look into who is funding that effort to determine whether or not they have done this before, if there is a history of the organization or attached organizations, like determining new opportunities. It can be tricky, but I would say generally that I'd look into the history of the scholarship to determine whether or not you can see if there are past awardees. And if that is not the case, and it seems like it is a new initiative, to look into who is funding it and whether or not they are funding other initiatives as well. there are also some cases where it's just a small scholarship and they're just getting going and they haven't done it before. And in that case, sometimes LinkedIn stalking helps to determine whether or not this is a real thing. Sometimes you have to get creative. But by and large, the number one way I would look at to see whether or not it's real is looking at who's received the award in the past.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else have any tips on that front?
Just like in general, or just like relating back to what you just said?
It can be either.
I would say like, at least for like using the template that you gave, it helped me like kind of categorize like different scholarships. So I guess like when I go back to look at it, it'll make it more easier to see, I guess, like what's more of importance, like as far as like whether I would say like maybe something like the scholarship, like let's say if it's a minority scholarship, I would say like that probably is something like of more importance to me, versus another scholarship that probably isn't, or it probably doesn't state whether it's for minorities or not. So it just definitely saves me like a lot of time, especially with the scoring.
Yeah, I'm glad. And the reason that category is there is that you tend to put more effort into things that you feel a connection to in some capacity. You tend to be more motivated to do it. Your response quality tends to be better. And so the reason that that category is there is exactly for the reason that you've named. And so I'm glad that you found that useful. Um, Donovan, something else that I was just thinking about is if you have an example of a scholarship where you're like, I don't know, is this a real thing? Feel free to drop that into the chat and we can take a look at it. Naomi, I see your note about having a hard time finding pre-vet scholarships. They are harder to find. I will say that. When you look at this tracker and see that most of these are categorized for vet students as opposed to pre-vets, it is because they are harder to find. But we will keep looking as well. And if you keep looking, that'll be great. And if you find anything, you can come right on back to this. You all should, I would propose bookmarking this to come back to it because we will likely try to keep it up to date and welcome you all to continue adding to it as you come across things. Also, another thing is if you all are ever in a place to go back to what Donovan named, where you are like, is this a real opportunity? And you have tried to look for past awardees, you have looked at the sponsoring entities or people to determine the respective validity. If you have done some LinkedIn searching and are not turning anything up, you can also always send it our way and say, hey, have you ever heard of this? Do you have any perspectives on this? Because we certainly would not want you to be spending your time on opportunities that are not real ones. No essay Sally scholarships. Huh. Interesting. I'm not sure about those, but if you next time you come across one, please send a link. All right. Anything else on this front, your experience doing the tracker, anything like that? Ooh, I do see this Sally scholarship when I've searched. This might be real though. I'll look into this. But I think this might be, yeah, I think that might be a real opportunity. Oh, it's attached to Sally Mae. This is a real opportunity. So all I'm doing is this is actually a good example. All I'm doing is I'm going through the website and I'm determining what agencies are sponsoring this. When I look at the sponsoring agencies, I see that it's attached to Sally Mae. Sally Mae, do you all know what Sally Mae is?
Yes.
Okay. So it is like it's a banking business And so what I see when I scroll to the bottom is that it's associated with Sally Mae. And then when I look up Sally Mae, I see that the same logo is attached. So when you are trying to figure out whether or not a scholarship is real, when I say like, first look at who is funding that, and then try to work backwards from there, look at past awardees, look at who is funding it. Those are ways to determine whether or not the opportunity is real. And when I look at this a bit further, I can see that it's attached to Sally Mae, which lets me know that the entity that is sponsoring it it's a major corporation. So then in that case, I know that it is a real opportunity. Any other questions that are popping up for you all? That was a good one. Or any other just like where do I go from here sort of musings? All right. Let's round this out then. We will spend we'll do 8 minutes in breakout groups. And in those groups, you are just gonna start to write out a transformable example. So we talked about this when Melanie was here. And for transformable examples, every time I share my screen, it goes back to the first slide. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to stay right here. So when we talk about transformable examples, what we are talking about are examples that you can use over and over and over again on your applications. You, in your breakout groups, should consider these common criteria that are going to show up on applications: commitment to the field, experience with animals and dedication, aspirations, and an example of a time where you persevered through a challenge. It shouldn't be that every single time you're applying to something, you're writing this over and over again. These are so common that you really should have a standard response ready to go that you can pull from every time. Choose one of these, and the way that you're going to write it is in this format: context, action, and result. As opposed to just writing a sentence or two, you are going to put it in this format in order to strengthen the quality of the examples that you are putting forward. And again, to continue to use these over and over again in applications. So first, take a moment to decide which of these you want to write about: commitment to the field, experience with animals or dedication, aspirations. So what are your career aspirations? Or an example of when you have persevered through a challenge. Take a moment to decide that. All right. I've also put that in the chat, so you'll have that. And then you are going to write that particular example with the framing of context, action, and then result. Here's an example. I didn't know a veterinarian in my community, and our family did not own animals. I was determined to become a vet and knew it was what I wanted to do. That's the context. The action that was taken: when this person went to university, they say, I applied to as many roles as was available to students, ended up working on a pig barn, first as an agricultural assistant and then as a student technician, biking to my placement as I didn't have a car. I also worked the front desk of the vet school. Both experiences introduced me to veterinarians and gave me a realistic picture of what it was like to be a vet. As a result, they obtained their veterinary hours for vet school admission and learned the importance of perseverance. Notice that they didn't just say, I didn't know how to be a vet, but I did get my vet school hours. They painted a picture by using the format of the context, the actions that were taken, and then the results accordingly. Any questions on that? You are going to do your own CAR example. Context, action, results. If you can remember that acronym as it relates to describing your experiences, it'll take you far. All right. That is in the chat. I will stop sharing my screen. Let's get you all into a breakout room we are going to take about 5 minutes here. You're going to share your context action result with the group. Even if you don't write it down, just sharing it among one another and perhaps providing one another feedback. You can say things like, it sounds like, or could you perhaps describe that as, in order to push how you are thinking about what you are writing. Any questions about that? All right. Remember, you are taking credit for your actions, you are using powerful action words, and you are naming the results. Breakout rooms for 5 minutes, and we will be back. Hey, welcome back.
Hey.
What kind of vet are you going to be?
So I want to be an emergency veterinarian, but I also want to specialize for surgery. So I'm an emergency assistant for South Atlanta Veterinary Emergency and Specialty. So that's why I kind of want to go into emergency. I like seeing new stuff, so it kind of just keeps me on my toes.
Very cool.
Thank
That's great. How are breakout groups? Did you all put your did you get things into the format that we talked about? Context, action, and result. Or where are you getting stuck? Anything?
I guess I can just like kind of say something. So, I will say like the template definitely helps. Um, I did not necessarily write anything down, but I kind of used it as like a way to kind of think about like with vet school applications and how they
Mm.
kind of want like similar things. So that's how I kind of thought about it. I know that normally, or at least like what I did when applying to vet school, I kind of talked about like, I know for the last question, it was kind of mainly, I'm assuming that it was talking about like like a resilience situation. So I just kind of talked about like resilience and like my background, a situation that I grew up with, how that kind of shaped my future, and then going into what I plan to do in the future. So I kind of tied in that last question with like my career aspirations.
Oh, great. Yeah, this is certainly applicable across contexts. So, though we name this for scholarships, when we talk about the categories indicated, commitment to the field, experience with animals, aspirations, perseverance, you will see those show up standard response ready across these categories. It will serve you well in many contexts. And so if you didn't do it tonight, do recommend setting aside some time. It's going to save you time over and over and over again. If you just write it, hone it, and always happy to provide feedback if at all helpful. We are at time, folks. It has been a pleasure. Um, as a reminder, July 29th is our next one. It is about applying for vet school. If you have any questions or anything at all comes up, don't hesitate to reach out. But otherwise, lovely to be in community with y'all tonight. I hope you have a good rest of the week.
You do the same, and thank you again.
Of course. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
You're
Have a nice
welcome.
night.
You too. Bye.